I decided to become a volunteer firefighter because I thought it'd be a great way to support my community. By trade, I'm actually an accountant. So I have my accounting job, but then after I get home from work and on the weekends, I'm training, going on alarms, and doing all sorts of fire-related activities. The morning of 9/11 seemed like a normal day for me. I was on my way to my accounting job, and I commuted into the city. My train station was underneath the towers. I got off the subway, and shortly after that, I heard this loud explosion. I felt the ground shake. I didn't know what happened. I thought potentially it was a car bomb. But then when I got to the street, I still didn't know it was a plane, but I could tell something definitely significant happened. And so I went to my office and checked in with them and said, hey, they don't have enough guys for this. And I said, let me go to the firehouse across the street from the towers and see what I can do to help. When I first arrived at Ten House, both the engine and truck company had already, those companies had already responded to the scene. The captain was still in quarters for Ten House, for 10 truck, and I introduced myself and said, hey, if you can use me, great. If not, I'll get out of your way. And basically he said, Rob, you're all I got. And my assignment was to set up one of the first, if not the first, triage locations for Lower Manhattan. So in the firehouse already, we had injured people, and it was my responsibility to start providing care for them.
Tell me what happened when the second plane hit the South Tower.
When the second plane hit the South Tower, the captain had mentioned to us that was not an accident. We're being attacked, and we definitely need to keep an eye out for whatever could potentially be coming next.
About an hour later, the South Tower collapsed. Tell me what happened. Where were you when that happened?
Yeah, so I was in the firehouse when the South Tower collapsed. We all started hearing this tremendous sound. And there were people who were out in front of the firehouse who came running towards me in the firehouse. And I was like, what's going on? And they're like, it's coming down. I go, what's coming down, the plane? And they were like, no, the tower. So we had people in the back of the firehouse trying to get out the back door of the firehouse. Then there was myself, and then there were the people who were by the street. Basically, when the collapse happened, everything went black. We couldn't see, we couldn't breathe because of all the ash. They estimated that the wind was about 140 miles an hour. When the tower came down, I got blown off my feet. 2 EMTs who came over from Brooklyn were now with us. One of them, he got blown off his feet as well. We had a jet engine come into the firehouse and crush the ambulance that they brought that we were supposed to use. It was extremely scary. Okay, we were suffocating and getting crushed by the people. When I got blown off my feet, I ended up hurting my back. One of the EMTs, he got blown off his feet. We both ended up hitting the same cinder block wall in the back of the firehouse in the truck room area. He ended up with a concussion and a sprained ankle. We had some cuts and bruises and things like that. We didn't know what to expect. Nobody did, okay? I can tell you even the command for FDNY didn't expect the towers to come down. That's why they had their command post in the lobby of the towers. So after the first tower came down, anything was possible.
And what do you remember about the North Tower coming down?
Yeah, so when the North Tower came down, I felt for myself that was even worse. Because when the South Tower came down, we were suffocating and we were trying to hold our breath, but we had a clean set of lungs. Now we were compromised and we had a lot of difficulty breathing. Now with the North Tower coming down and going through that all over again, my mindset was, Rob, you're not gonna make it through this one. Just keep working till you drop. Once we were able to start seeing a little bit, okay, and breathing, because we were able to finally get to the back of the fire, once I was able to get to the back of the firehouse, and I'm feeling my way along the wall, it's part of my training, I had a good map in my head of the layout. And I knew, okay, here's the telephone booth, here's the TV room. I got to the door. I felt around the doorway, and I came across some hinges. And that told me, oh, the door opens towards me, which is why people weren't going out, because usually an emergency door, you push it out. Okay, what happened was there was a screen door in the firehouse, so the guys could open up the emergency door and lock the screen door, but this way they can get some fresh air during the summertime, I guess, to keep it cool in there. So once I realized what was going on, I was able to get that door open, get the other door open finally, and then we could start getting people out of the firehouse. We had a lot of people there that were hurt, so I was able to make out the image of a small group of police officers, and I called them over. I said, hey, we got a lot of hurt people over here. Can you come help us? And we started passing people through a blown out window area, the door area, just trying to get people evacuated out of the firehouse. I worked at ground zero doing the best I can with things until about 4 o'clock-ish, shortly after 4 o'clock. It was just after Tower 7 came down that it got to the point where I needed to start thinking about myself and where I could go and what I can do.
How would you describe the city in the immediate aftermath of 9/11?
After 9/11, in that time, around that time, the city really came together. They appreciated everything that we were doing, what we were going through. They knew that we lost friends. Even though I'm not part of FDNY, I'm not part of NYPD, I did have friends from the fire department that were killed. I did have friends from the PD, from the police department that were killed. And the public just wanted to do anything that they could to say thank you. The way they were dropping off food and supplies and anything that they could think of that we might need, everybody wanted to help any way they could, and for some people, making those drop-offs, that was their thing. And it was the beautiful part of a very ugly situation.
After the attacks, you decided to become an EMT.
Correct.
Why did you make that switch?
Yeah. After the attacks, I decided to get my EMT certification. Okay. I wanted to have more tools for my toolbox. Okay. My assignment was to put together a triage location, start treating people. All my first aid training is because I was a Boy Scout. That's where it came from. And let's face it, New York is always going to be a target. I felt I needed to up my game so the next time this happens or something like this happens, I can do even better.
You've talked about dealing with survivor's guilt. What kinds of things does your mind tell you when you're feeling that way?
Yeah, I've been fighting survivor's guilt. Okay, so for example, when the city was doing its recall, they wanted to put together a team of guys to go across to the towers. And I said to the captain, put me with those guys. And he said, no, keep doing what you're doing, because I figured since the EMTs were there and what they were going to be doing, that was my specialty. And the captain said, no, keep doing what you're doing. And I watched those 8 guys go across the street, and 5 minutes later, they all got killed in the first collapse. And that is something that I'll never forget, because here it is, I specifically asked to be with those guys. If the captain said, yes, you're on the team, you and I wouldn't be talking. So when it comes to the survivor's guilt, it's tough sometimes. It's really tough. Just trying to think it through and say, hey, I didn't cause this, okay? I had blamed myself for many years. It wasn't until 2023 that I really came to accept the fact that I wasn't responsible for it.
how did your personality change?
With the PTSD, my personality changed dramatically. Some of the signs and symptoms of PTSD is irritability. Okay, and I try to explain to people, picture being a pot of water at about 210 degrees. You're 2 degrees short of boiling over constantly. Okay, something simple happens. My reaction after getting those 2 degrees extra that I needed is over the top for what happened. You know, whether my son spilled a glass of milk, you know, it's just milk, clean it up. But for me, I was already in that heightened stage of agitation. And I wasn't somebody I would want to have been around. In 2022, my PTSD got to the point where I had my suicide planned out. And I had a choice. I can go through with it, or I can do something significant about it. For myself, being out in nature is something that really helps me. I would go camping with my buddies on my scout troop, you know, for the weekend, and my friends would always say, hey, we never see that smile anywhere else. So I decided I would hike the Appalachian Trail. And that was more than just a weekend. That was almost 6 months out in the woods hiking. And that allowed me to really take the time that I never really took before to process all the baggage that I've been carrying for all those years. The survivor's guilt, blaming myself that, you know, we did have one person get killed in the firehouse, and I put it on myself that I must have done something wrong. Okay. When I was on the trail, I came across a young man. I was hiking. My goal was to hike the entire trail. He was just out for the day. He was a local resident somewhere. And so he stopped me and said, hey, what are you doing out here? So I started telling him my story about 9/11 and my PTSD, and I really needed a place to just clear my head. And while I'm sharing my whole reason for being out there, I see him, and his eyes are tearing up, and his bottom lip starts quivering. And I'm like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, actually, I'm not. I said, okay, forget about me. Let's talk about you. And we're talking about him and his situation for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And at the end, we were kind of like, hey, do you have medical insurance? And he goes, yeah, I have medical insurance. Okay, great. Check your policy. I can almost guarantee you there's something in there about mental health. Okay? You deserve to be happy. Get some help and you know, start caring for yourself. And he was like, okay. So when we finished, he went his way, I went my way. We're actually both heading down the trail together, but I would stop along the way to take pictures, things like that. And so he's further down the trail, and he got to his turnaround point, and he comes back towards me, and we ended up meeting up again. And he stopped me and said, listen, I just want to say thanks again for taking the time to talk to me. It really helped. I was like, hey, no problem. I said, my goal, I'm trying to stop anybody from going down the path I was headed. So if I can do that for one person, then mission accomplished. And when he turned to me and said, go find number 2, I was blown away, because here it is. I didn't know that I was going to have this interaction with him and have part of my goal accomplished right in front of me. You know, I've been posting on my hike and everything, and people would be, hey, that looks cool, great job, keep it up. But for part of my mission to happen right in front of me was phenomenal.
What do you think about most whenever you think about 9/11?
When the 9/11 anniversary comes around, there's a lot of things that get stirred up. Some of the things that I think about are the chaos of that day. And reminding myself that we all did the best we could.
What do you hope people remember most about it?
You know, when it comes to thinking about 9/11, I hate talking about politics, okay? Because there's a fund out there now for all the first responders, okay? And that includes, you know, the steel workers and all those guys as well, you know, to maintain a health monitoring program. And every now and then they have to come up to Congress and get some sort of extension for more funding, things like that. And then I hear about, you know, some congressional person out west saying, why do we have to send more money to New York? So my question back to them is, was New York attacked or was America attacked?